This is how Africa was carved, Episode 8. Before colonization ever moved inland, Africa was already being reshaped, violently, by a global system built on human extraction. This was not a trade of goods. It was a trade of people. European ships arrived along the African coast with a specific demand: labor for the Americas. Plantations were expanding. Empires were growing, and they needed millions of workers. Europeans did not invent slavery. Forms of slavery already existed within Africa. But these systems were local, regulated, and often temporary. They were tied to debt, war, or punishment, not race. People were not stripped permanently of identity, lineage, or humanity, and they were not exported across oceans for profit. The Atlantic slave trade changed the nature of slavery completely. It introduced mass capture, mass transport, mass profit. Suddenly, human beings became commodities in a global market. The demand was endless, and that demand reshaped behavior across entire regions. Wars intensified. Raids increased. Villages were targeted not for land, but for people. Communities were destabilized as captives were taken from farms, roads, and homes. Families disappeared. From West and Central Africa to the Americas, millions were captured, transported, and sold. Those taken were marched to the coast, often chained together. Many died before ever seeing a ship. Then came the Middle Passage. Ships were overcrowded. People were packed below decks with little air, food, or sanitation. Disease spread quickly. Violence was constant. Many died at sea and were thrown overboard. Survival was not guaranteed. It was accidental. Those who survived arrived in the Americas stripped of names, languages, and identities. They were forced into plantation labor, producing sugar, cotton, tobacco, and wealth that would transform Europe and the Americas. Africa felt the consequences deeply. Kingdoms such as Oyo, Dahomey, and Congo became involved in the trade, sometimes through choice, sometimes through pressure, sometimes through coercion fueled by European weapons and competition. Power shifted toward those who controlled capture and supply. Economies that once thrived on gold, salt, ivory, and agriculture became increasingly tied to human cargo. The social impact was devastating. Communities lost generations of young people. Elders, artisans, farmers, and leaders were removed. Trust between neighboring societies eroded. Regions were depopulated. Development stalled. Africa's greatest resource, its people, was exported. Europeans justified the trade using language of profit, progress, and religion. They framed it as commerce, as civilization, as necessity. But in reality, it was extraction on an industrial scale. This system established a pattern that would continue into colonial rule. Wealth flowing outward, instability remaining behind. While some African rulers resisted the trade, others were drawn in by European guns, goods, and political pressure. The trade created dependency, it created division, and it weakened societies long before formal colonization began. The rise of the Atlantic slave trade is not only a story of suffering. It is the foundation of a global system that enriched others by dismantling African societies. And it leads directly to the next question. What was the true human cost of this trade? On families, communities, and generations left behind? That is what we examine next.